They shot 6 people. 3 died, 3 lived.
Government name is Henry Bolden, but they call him RonDu because he had knowledge of self.
To sit up there 112 years to life.
In the mid-'80s, Queens was dripping in money. Cash flowed like a river that never dried up, faster than the cops could even count. But in those wild streets, where every hustler dreamed of stacking their empire high, there was one man who didn't care about building anything. He wanted to destroy it all. His name carried weight, fear, and a promise of chaos. Henry Rondo Bolden. He wasn't after power. He was after control through fear. He robbed Harlem's golden boy, Azie Faison, and even dared to cross Queens' own kingpin, Lorenzo Fat Cat Nichols.
I'm hooking you up. You got money in your pocket? I'll deal the block. It's my block. No.
Just hearing his name made even the toughest men tense up. It sounded like a warning shot before the storm. Rondo wasn't just some reckless stick-up kid. He was the final product of a system that raised wolves and left them hungry. I'm hooking you up. You got money in your pocket? I'll deal a block. It's my block. No, you can't. That's the language he spoke. Survival through domination. His story showed what happens when surviving turns into violence, and violence becomes the only thing that earns respect. In Queens, there were only 2 kinds of players, the hustlers and the wolves. The hustlers, Azie Faison, Rich Porter, Alpo, and Fat Cat, wore gold like armor, cruised through the city in Cadillacs, Benzes, and BMWs, showing off what ambition could buy.
Real boss of Queens.
Huh.
That's like when you sit there and you listen to Preem and you listen to Cat, you know, it's on the South Side that they did stuff.
Yeah.
But there's a person that was over all of them. And that's the thing that's never been.
They were living proof that if you had the guts to risk it all, you could rise straight out of poverty. But then came the wolves, stick-up kids, predators lurking in the shadows, waiting for the flashy ones to slip up. They didn't want fame, just fast cash. Their hustle wasn't product, it was fear. Henry Rondo Bolden was one of those wolves, a name whispered like a curse. He grew up in the same chaos, but played a different game. While Fat Cat built empires, Rondo made a living by tearing them down. When others saw hustlers as untouchable, he saw targets. Nobody was safe. One day you're king, the next day you're laying in the street wondering how it all vanished. That's why hustlers in Queens rolled deep, slept light, and trusted no one. Power there was borrowed, never owned. And the dirtier it got, the more alive Rondo felt. The cops were no better. Corruption ran wild. Badges and ski masks looked the same. Many officers were flipping the same bricks they seized, robbing the same hustlers they were paid to stop. It was an era where the line between law and street blurred to nothing.
They wanted that fast money. And what they did is they went out there and they started jumping on any drug dealer that they feel that was out there that was making.
So imagine being a teenager in the middle of that madness. Your school crumbling, your family broke, lights flickering out, and outside you see teens your age in shiny cars, dripping in jewelry, running the block like kings. The choices were brutal. Hustle, rob, or go hungry. For Rondo, the decision was simple. He wasn't going to starve. The Bolden name should have stood for something better. His father, Reverend Henry Bolden, preached every Sunday about salvation and discipline. But outside those church doors, poverty screamed louder than prayer. The streets spoke in hunger and violence, a language no sermon could translate. After his parents split, their mother tried to hold it down with public assistance, but the system was broken. The system absolutely guaranteed that the Boldens would not make it, a court official once said. And he wasn't lying. The Claremont houses weren't just poor. They were a factory for wolves. Even the infamous Timons twins were legends for their robberies. Cruelty wasn't shocking there. It was normal. Curtis Bolden, the oldest brother, would rob anyone breathing. Ernest was hooked but still dangerous. Robert was pure temper, overcompensating with violence just to survive. But Henry was different. He and his cousin Isaac Just Me Bolden didn't just rob, they hunted. They targeted dealers who couldn't call the cops even if they wanted to. That's how they became known as the godfathers of house robberies. Rondo's rap sheet went back to the 60s, but the crime that defined him happened in '77. At just 17, he and an accomplice robbed an elderly couple. The details were sickening. Court records said the man's teeth were torn from his mouth. When Rondo faced the judge, he laughed, cold, fearless, like prison didn't scare him. The courtroom saw a predator with no sense of remorse. He got 8 to 25 years, but prison didn't change him. It hardened him. By the time he got out in the mid-'80s, New York was drowning in the crack era. Money was fast, death was faster. And Rondo? He came back sharper, colder, hungrier. He wasn't about building empires. He was about tearing them down. The Baldwin brothers were known as a one-family crime wave. No crew, no loyalty, no rules, just raw chaos. Where they went, trouble followed. Fat Cat, AZ, Harlem, all became walking ATMs in RonDu's eyes. Fear was his weapon, not his side effect. When people heard RonDu, they froze. Even the most powerful hustlers started to look over their shoulders. The irony? These men who ruled blocks now lived in fear of a man who owned nothing but his name. Then came the move that changed everything, robbing Fat Cat nickels. By the mid-1980s, Fat Cat ruled Jamaica, Queens with an iron fist. Even from behind bars, his word was law. Crossing him was like signing your death warrant. So when RonDu decided to hit him, the streets couldn't believe it. People thought it was suicide. But RonDu didn't care about the future. He lived in the now. High risk, higher adrenaline. The setup came from inside. Fat Cat's girlfriend Lennon handled his money. She was trusted, protected, off limits. But betrayal always comes from close to home. RonDu's cousin Isaac Justme had grown up with Fat Cat. Fat Cat had helped him get clean, gave him a car, cash, and a job. But when RonDu came whispering about a big score, temptation hit too hard. Isaac caved. He told RonDu where Lennon lived but begged him, no violence. That promise didn't even last 10 minutes. On a quiet afternoon, two of Fat Cat's men, Bobo and Jughead, dropped off money at Lennon's place. Moments later, RonDu and his crew burst out from the bushes. Guns drawn, shouting, chaos everywhere. They beat Lennon, flipped furniture, tore through the house like a storm. When they left, they had over $500,000 in cash and jewelry. But during the chaos, RonDu's mask slipped. Jughead caught his reflection in a mirror. 1 second was all it took. He recognized him instantly. Henry RonDu Baldwin. That was it. His fate was sealed. Fat Cat didn't hold meetings or issue warnings. Even from prison, he made one call. Get them all. The Supreme Team took the order. 2 corrupt parole workers sold the Baldwins' home addresses for $3,000, and from that moment, it was open season. August 7th, 1987. Isaac Justme Baldwin stood outside his mother's house when a car rolled up slow. Gunfire ripped the air. 4 bullets hit him before he hit the ground. Fat Cat's revenge was brutal and fast. RonDu was next. They came for him in the Bronx, blades and bullets flying, but somehow he slipped away. Still, from that day on, he was a hunted man, living on borrowed time. Even Fat Cat later said, I love Just, but he gave me no choice. It wasn't about money anymore. It was about respect. And in that world, broken trust had one punishment: death. 2 weeks later, instead of laying low, RonDu was plotting again. This time, his eyes were on Azie Faison, Harlem's golden child. He teamed up with 2 ruthless hitters, Ronald Ace Timons and Kevin Clark. Clark was the key. He was dating AZ's sister. That gave him access, trust, and information. AZ even looked out for him, set him up with a block, a car, and 15 grand to start his hustle. But jealousy is poison. Clark saw that blessing as a ceiling, not a gift. The plan: hit AZ's Bronx stash house, grab the cash, the product, and dip. But it all went wrong. Azie was out playing ball for 5 grand that day. When he came back, the wolves were already inside. At first, it was smooth. Quick robbery, no noise. But then, AZ heard a familiar voice. Kev, what you doing, man? Clark panicked, ripped off his mask and screamed, you said my name! Everyone in here! Then gunfire exploded. 25 shots tore the apartment apart. Aziz's aunt Myra Enoch gone instantly. Family friend Joan Blue and Charles Parker too. A 13-year-old girl, Lynette Bell, got shot twice in the head but survived. Azie was hit 9 times, 2 in the head, 1 in the neck, and somehow lived. Paramedics carried him out half dead, and the whole city froze. For all that violence, all that chaos, the take was pitiful. A few grand in cash and a chain worth $15,000. Nothing but blood for crumbs. But what made it legendary wasn't the robbery, it was who they hit. Azie Faison was Harlem royalty, tight with Rich Porter and Alpo. That robbery sent shockwaves across New York. A sister's boyfriend turning wolf, betraying family for pocket change. It became a story whispered in barbershops, jails, and corners for decades. Years later, Hollywood turned it into Paid in Full. 2002, Harlem's story brought to life. Azie became Ace, Rich became Mitch, Alpo became Rico, and hidden in the mix was the ghost of RonDu Baldwin. His chaos was reborn in the character Calvin, played by Kevin Carroll, the snake in the grass who couldn't stand to see another man shine. He represented the wolves who didn't build anything. They took it. For those who knew, Calvin was RonDu's reflection. The same betrayal, the same reckless hunger. The man who smiles in your face and robs you blind. Fat Cat helped RonDu's cousin out of kindness, and Azie trusted his family. Both got betrayed the same way. Calvin wasn't glorified in the movie. He was a warning. Proof that success in the streets was fragile. One jealous man could ruin everything. Over time, reality and fiction blurred. People in Harlem and Queens swore Calvin was based on RonDu. Whether it was fact or legend didn't matter anymore, because in the streets, perception is reality. And RonDu's legend grew beyond truth, a myth born from fear and betrayal. When RonDu finally went to trial, it wasn't a court case, it was a show. The streets had already written the ending. Judge Lawrence Tenetti of Bronx Supreme Court sentenced him to 112 years to life. No parole, no appeal, no second act. Even his right-hand man, Ace Timons, got the same. But RonDu didn't flinch. He took it on the chin like every beating he'd survived. No fear, no tears. For a man built on power, showing weakness would have been the real sentence. Behind bars, RonDu didn't disappear. He evolved. He embraced the teachings of the 5% Nation, taking the name RonDu to mean knowledge of self within. To some, he was still that ruthless stick-up kid. To others, he became a voice of wisdom. Inside, survival was another war. Hustlers could buy protection, but stick-up kids had nothing but their name. Yet RonDu still commanded respect. He was feared and respected, a contradiction in motion. Prison tried to break him, but he stood tall. After robbing Fat Cat, he was jumped and cut so bad he needed 150 stitches, but he lived. The same toughness that kept him alive on Queens corners kept him breathing behind bars. People who met him said he could switch from cold menace to deep conversation in seconds. One man remembered meeting him at 14. RonDu didn't scare him. He warned him, told him the truth about the streets straight up. Years later, that same man saw him again inside the Bronx House of Detention. RonDu wasn't preaching religion. He was leading church, his word for strategy meetings, teaching inmates how to survive the system. Even locked up, his presence pulled men together. But prison doesn't honor legends, it buries them. Over time, RonDu's story turned mythic, passed around like a ghost story among inmates. Some feared him, some respected him, but all remembered his name. Henry RonDu Baldwin became a symbol, a man who lived fast, hit hard, and refused to break. To the young generation, he was proof of where that stick-up life ends, behind bars or in the ground. To others, he was the rare mix of wisdom and wrath, a man who burned his way into history. Because RonDu was never remembered for what he built, only for what he tore down.